years ago in remarkable detail.
Let's say it's top of the seventh, the visiting team's losing by 1, but they have men on second and third with 1 out. Yeah. And they're playing in Coors Field. At this point, the Colorado Rockies have a 58% chance of winning this game.
His brain works in a completely different way than anybody else I've ever met in my life. He is always functioning and operating on numbers and percentages.
It's just constant. That's the thing. You can't really pick out anything because it's just all of the time. He always reduces things to that analytical level.
Now they'll have men on second and third with 1 out. But guess what? Now their chances of winning have dropped, let's say, to 39%, or maybe they'd have gone up to 44%.
He has this thing that he does, and he can do, is you can give him your birthday, and he can tell you what day you were born in, like that.
That's a Saturday, and I'll tell you how. Well, the New York Mets won the World Series on Thursday, October 16th, 1969, against the Baltimore Orioles. That's when they won Game 4, their fourth game. It was Game 5 of the series, but they won 4 games to 1. They won that winning game on Thursday, October 16th of 1969. So therefore, Saturday was October 18th in 1969, and that's in 1969 and 1952 are congruent years. Day of the week.
As a matter of fact, he's absolutely right. So what do you do if you have a mind that's an improvement on the proverbial steel trap? If you're Jeff Sagarin, you had it all figured out by December 28th, 1958. That's the Colts-Giants NFL Overtime Championship. To those of you who can't remember just the greatest game in NFL history.
Sports seemed magical and beautiful and innocent back then. I couldn't imagine growing up sort of the age I was then, have that be now, and look at those guys as if they were gods and something special. It's all cynical and money. It was different back in the 50s, but it was magical back then.
Jeff was 10. That's when competition and calculation found a home side by side in his brain.
I thought I was a genius. I was 10 years old. I said, oh, if I divide by games played, I can figure out that this team's scoring 33 a game and giving up 17, and as if that was like nuclear physics, you know. And I was always mystified when I did not go 15-0.
It wasn't long before an adult Jeff added a third C to the competition and calculation puzzle: computers. He wasn't the first to do so, but he soon became the best at giving fans the stats they needed.
I think what Jeff did for sports rankings was apply it to things in a way that made it used,ful.
A friend of mine said, a guy named Wayne Winston, who wasn't here today, who's a professor at IU, but I knew him, we were students at MIT, who happened to live in the same dorm. He said, hey, Jeff, look in USA Today. They got somebody doing computer ratings for football. That's what you do. So I was crushed. I looked, I said, God, I wish that was me. So I called him up on the phone. I still didn't even have a PC. I was still using the mainframe at IU with a deck of cards. And he said, well, look, first of all, as we got talking, he says, we don't take dictation on the phone. You're not going to read ratings. He said, do you know what a PC is? I said, well, vaguely. He said, you're going to have to get one.
Jeff got a PC and learned how to use it. Still, the gruff voice at the other end of the phone was reluctant to give him a chance. Jeff wore him down and wrangled a promise to let him do basketball rankings after the first of the year.
I remember it was Sunday night, January 6th of '85. And I said, it's me again. He says, oh, good grief. I thought, you know, he's like, you're like a bad penny who just keeps turning up. So I said, well, I'm ready to start. Oh, you know, he was like, he says, all right, all right. And anyhow, they started running me on Tuesday, January 8th, '85. One reason I remember that, it was the 50th anniversary of Elvis Presley's birth. And then on the front page, they had a big thing. Elvis Presley would have been 50 today. And then in the sports section, that was the day they started me.
It's Wednesday mornings at the Runcible Spoon in Bloomington. Reagan makes a mean cappuccino, and Matt makes a mean just about everything else. This is where Jeff and his friends like to hang out. They call themselves the C.R.A.F.T Club, which stands for Can't Remember a Thing. They're an eclectic mix, and the conversation is often pure Sagarin.
Jeff said something about what are the probability that, you know, 50-year-old men in some other universe are, in fact, able to attract beautiful young women, and I'm going, in 0 universes is that happening right now, Jeff? And he goes, no, I think that's probably actually epsilon, which, whatever that means, I have no idea. It's some mathematical term that is not really 0, but it's not really 1 either.
Jeff is now a franchise, his column in USA Today being joined by rankings in the Louisville Courier-Journal, the Bloomington Herald-Times for 27 years now, the Dallas Morning News, and other papers around the country. But it's Bloomington that East Coast-born Jeff calls home, based in part on a piece he read in the paper that had nothing to do with sports rankings.
There was a crime reported. Mrs. Terwilliger reports the theft of a potted plant from her front porch. I sort of looked at that and said, wow, if that's considered a crime wave, I think this is the kind of town I'm moving to. I mean, in Dorchester, it'd be like 6 people were killed last night, In Bloomington, it was potted plant stolen from front porch. I said, I'm coming here. This is it. This is the town for me.
In some ways, he's a regular guy. In some ways, he's a mathematical intellect. And this is both an intellectual community and a community which has a great acceptance factor, people who are different.
He's got a brilliant mathematical mind, and yet he's got this childlike quality to him that really takes him back to mid-century thinking of Mayberry and Leave It to Beaver. He kind of lives in that world, and he lives by those principles.
One of the big things in life is to show up for work, okay? Show up. So I've always prided myself. I don't miss deadlines. I'm always there. You don't goof off at your work. People say, boy, you were really lucky to get in USA Today. I said, well, there's luck in life, but I had worked hard to get to the point where I was allowed to roll the dice at the table.
In the end, where a team ranks during the season yields to some kind of playoff system to crown an authentic champion. But when those teams are picked based on the rankings, even mild-mannered Jeff can find himself the target of unhappy fans.
I remember one guy sent an email that said, wishing you and your family the very worst for the holidays. That was a classic. Well, do your birthday or whatever day is interesting to you.
September 12th, 1963.
Okay, that'd be a Thursday. And the reason I know that, I was a sophomore in high school then, and I happen to know that Monday was September 9th in 1963.
Jeff is wired this way. Jeff is born to do what he does. That's why it's easy for him. I think if somebody had to try hard to do it, I don't think they could do what Jeff does.
It's almost as if society just kept pulling me along, saying, okay, we'll let you get away with this a little longer. So there's an old, who knows, maybe it was a 60s kind of cliche that I sort of thought, hey, it makes sense to me. You should try, give it a shot to try to make a living doing what you truly like to do. And if it doesn't work, then you can do what, you can survive doing. But somehow I you could say, got away with doing. My mom once told me something I thought was very profound. I might have had a day I was just sort of mouthing off saying, man, I'm tired, the taxes are too high or something like that. She said, son, you should, get on your knees and thank God that you live in a country that lets you make a living, do what you would have done for free when you were 11 years old. Don't ever complain again. So I never have.